Good morning. Is it time? It's time. It's right on time. Okay, great. So I'm going to talk about the world of Lexica. I'm going to do a well played, and I'm also going to talk about how I used Lexica to transition from a AAA developer to a transformational game maker. So about me, my name is Harley Baldwin. I am now the Vice President of Game Design at Schell Games. Previously, I made a lot of games. As a line designer, I worked at Her Interactive and LucasArts. I moved on then to design leadership, and I focused mostly on 3D action adventure and FPSs. And during that time, one of the things that I am most proud of is some of the achievements that I got to write. So I brought you achievements like A Need to Bleed and The Sound of One Hand Capping, which took me 4 months to get through Activision's legal department because they couldn't believe that it was in public, that the idea of the sound of one hand clapping was in public domain. Blood and guts, and then of course my very, very favorite, can't beat fresh meat. So I'm that guy. And then this happened. And, well, you know, they change your life, right? Over a period of about 5 years, after the big one was born, I started to think about a lot more carefully about what I was putting into the world. And I also started to get bored with making the same old, big budget, how realistic can we make our gun, how bloody can we make our headshot kind of stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still really like to play FPSs, and I still buy them, but there's not a lot of new stuff going on in that space. It's just more polys, more pixels, more animations. And so I really wanted to do something new and something interesting. And also, there had been a little voice for many, many years saying, hey, you know what would be cool? Is if you could just make a little game that would do something interesting and maybe make people see the world in a new way. So after a while, I moved to Pittsburgh to work with this guy at Schell Games. Some of you may have heard of him. And when I showed up, they were finishing the first installment of this game, The World of Lexica. The World of Lexica is a book-centric story RPG on iOS. And the goal, the stated goal of this game is to instill a love of reading in 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. That is a transformational goal, if I've ever heard one. And when I walked into the building, I was like, that's not gonna happen, man. I just, like, it's not possible, right? But there was another interesting thing about Lexica, which is that it is possibly, for a little while, the largest tablet game ever made. It's gargantuan. It is made up of, I believe, 5 installs that are at max cap size for iOS. It's huge. And that is a AAA ambition. And so this seemed like an excellent opportunity for me to look at what I knew very well, which is big budgets and big teams and really polishing things until they shine, and also a really, really big transformational goal. And maybe that would help me to transition into a world that I really didn't know a lot about, because I know how to make really stupid puns in trophies, but I don't really know a lot about what's happening behind the scenes when you're trying to transform somebody with a game. So the first question I had to ask is, how is it both, right? And so I played a little game. And the game is called, is it AAA or Transformational? And we're going to play it now. So I'm going to start with the Curioso. And I'm going to show you my Curioso. I've been playing a completionist playthrough, and I'm not over there. Hang on a second. How do I do that? Here's what I'm going to do. What, do you think it'll work? taskbar. All right, so, excuse me, technical difficulties. Boop, 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 and here we go. All right, so here's my Curioso, which I worked so hard in the game and so hard up here to show you. So I've been doing a completionist playthrough. I'm about a third of the way through the game because the game is huge. You notice this wonderful quilt-looking thing? The reason I have that skin is because I'm really interested in historical books, and so I've been reading a lot of historical books. Lexica includes about 400 ebooks in the game that it is. And so I am interested in historical books. I read historical books. I answer a little quiz. When I go and talk to this character called the Book Oracle, I get rewards. And some of those rewards are themed for the stuff that I'm interested in. The number of augmentations, which is what these are called in the game, is enormous. It's really astonishing. And I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to unlock all of them because I can't even imagine how many books I would have to read. But the great thing is, it doesn't matter which books I read. Any book I read is going to give me rewards, and not just these rewards, but other rewards in the game. So, let's go back. A lot of clicks, sorry about that. So the Curioso is AAA. For this game, for the purposes of the game that we're playing, while yes, it is driving me with extrinsic motivation to go read. Really, no one's going to read through a book just to get a quilt skin, right? But we know for sure that there's 3 weird species of Curiosos you can pick, and there's all these hats that you can put on. Just the sheer amount of effort and time and rigging and animations that went into the Curiosos, they're very much a AAA experience. All right, so combat. Let's look at combat, which is something I know a little bit about. Wake up. All right, so first we're going to have a little fight. And you can see that this is my character you like my hat? This is my character in the fight. And I've got a variety of strategies and tactics that I can use. And I've got these enemies which are clearly advertising themselves as enemies. And we've got ranged weapons, and we've got close-up weapons, and we've got shields, and I've got a ground pound, and there's all this great stuff going on. And I'm gonna, gotta come around here, gotta take a little break. Definitely need that health, come right back around, get the health, and then I can take care of the rest of this. Oh, one more guy left. So the combat is pretty exciting. This is a boss fight. And this is an example of one of the ways that Lexica sort of layers combat in. You can bring these characters, this is Maid Marian, who have weapons, and you can use those weapons against the voids. The voids are created by people who have lost curiosity, stopped reading books, that kind of stuff in the world that this exists in. And so one of the ways that combat kind of scales is that we introduce characters in and out, and those characters bring their abilities for you. And then at the end, Heidi, from the book Heidi, is happy to see Maid Marian, and there you go. So, is combat AAA or transformational in this game? It's transformational, and there's a few reasons for that. First of all, it's a tablet game. A tablet game does not have the control fidelity that you need to have a really deep combat game. That's just part of it, right? That's just one of those things. You need those controls. You're not going to get the very, very fine controls that you need otherwise. Also, because this game is for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who are varying developmental levels, you need to take that into account. And so people need to be able to sort of just brute force through it, and if they don't understand the strategy and tactics behind it. And also, if you think about 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, you're going to have a wide variety of people with experience in games, right? You're going to have kids who go home and do nothing but play Call of Duty, and you're going to have kids who go home and do their homework, or work in a restaurant, or go outside and play. And so you need to make sure that the kids who don't spend all their time in front of Call of Duty also can play and enjoy the game. So for that reason, the combat is transformational rather than AAA. Universe and story. Let's look at the universe and story. Oh, this one's going to have sound, hopefully. Okay, so the universe is a great big magical library which holds the souls of every book ever written. That's basically the universe and story behind it. And there's all these bookshelves all over. You can go up to the bookshelves, and the bookshelves are themed, and you can see those books, and you can tap on those books, and you can go read those books anytime you want to in the game, and you will get rewards for doing so. The universe is also chock full of pickups, and I told you earlier I was doing a completionist playthrough. So these floating things back here, these are inspirations. There's 10 inspirations in every level. You get all 10 inspirations. You get a special reward. And so I'm very much motivated to go do that. But you'll also notice if you look at this world, it is gorgeous. This is on an iPad. This is not on a PS3 or a PS4. This is on an iPad. The art is rendered beautifully. Great care has been taken with it. And then you also have these deep character stories and interactions. And you don't have voice lines, partly because there's no way you would fit that on the iPad, but also this is a game about reading. So you can pretty much get away with making sure that they're reading the story as they go, right? So one of the interesting things about a lot of the character interactions and stories is that at the beginning you may have noticed that our friend Lumen here has asked us not to let anybody know that the lexicon is missing, because that could be bad politically. And at the end of this scene, I have a choice whether or not I can say that the lexicon is missing. This feels like that's conversations with consequence. Now, whether or not it really is conversation with consequence, I will leave as an exercise to the reader, but I will say that Telltale Games has an entire incredibly successful business model built on the idea that your conversations have consequence. So that's worth thinking about. All right. Back to my little hacked thing. So the universe and story, definitely AAA. There are lots of transformational aspects. There is lots of research behind the story and why the story is the story that it is. But in terms of the amount of time and effort and polish and visual fidelity and concept art that was put into this game, it is definitely AAA. And honestly, the budget is a true AAA budget. So let's talk next about embedded games. Lexica has lots and lots of embedded games. I'm going to take you through two that are about the concept of morphology. And the first one is Inklings. So the way you get into an embedded games in the game is sometimes you come upon a gate, and in order to get through the gate, you have to complete one of these embedded games. So we're going to go into the Inkling Burrow, and these guys are going to help us. So here we are in the Inkling Burrow. This is a reasonably simple game. Initially, you're just trying to go and get these crystals and then take them to heal the other crystal. But later on in this game, you find words that have been mixed up, right? And so you have something like I've forgotten my example, but you can imagine two words with common letter combinations, but the common letter combinations are mixed up. You have to pick one up, take it to the other one, and take it back, and that's how you heal the world. And so it's just exposing you to this idea that things like O-L-O-G-Y is a really important letter combination, and if you know what it means and how to spell it and how to say it, that's going to be helpful for you as a reader. All right. The next one is Spelling Stone. This is my favorite. So again, we're trying to get through this lock, and so we're going to go to Spelling Stone. I love this game, and I love this game because it gets very hard very fast, but it starts very easy, right? So basically, all that's happening is you have these letter groups, and if you can combine the letter groups, you get the color combinations, and that unlocks, and you're trying to go from left to right and make a path. But very quickly, you run out of words that use those letter groups, and so you really have to be thinking about your entire vocabulary, and the morphology of what you're doing or using the morphology of the words it very quickly challenges me, and I have a pretty good vocabulary, not as good as I did when I was 30 because I still had a memory, but still. All right, so next, sentence sensibility. This is, I'm showing you this in 4 times sped up, and the reason I'm doing that is because you don't want to watch me do it in real time. So sentence sensibility basically gives you a classic sentence from classic literature, just the words, and you have to figure out what order it's in. And if you put them in the right thing, you say submit, it'll glue them together so you can kind of work your way through it, right? One of the things that's really interesting that happens here is you get stuck on the wrong answer. At some point, I was so sure that bathed and in were next to each other that I couldn't move on. I see this happen with people all the time. It's really interesting how as soon as you learn to take a step back and just rearrange things so that the things that you think should fit but don't work, you can solve for these. It's also really interesting how on another in another part of your brain, there's a kind of artistic engagement, right? You're trying to figure out what the language style of the person who originally wrote the sentence is, so that that's the main clue you might have to complete the sentence in the end. In this case, I was trying to figure out what Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a writer, what kind of writer he was, right? But without many clues, it took me a while. And as soon as I had a few words together, oh, okay, I understand, this is the rhythm of this language, that's a huge clue, and I felt much more comfortable. This exposes the book to the player, obviously, and these are really interesting. A lot of the sentences that they used in this they're super interesting sentences, and they really make me want to go and read more. So, let's see what else we've got. The last of the embedded games that I want to show you, which is not the last of the embedded games in the game, is story cards. Again, this is a sped up playthrough. And this is in fact just one turn, enemy plays and then I play, of an 11-minute game that I played. And most of my story cards hands are like this. Story cards is a CCG that uses characters and authors of books and the implicit powers and skills that they have from their books or their lives as the CCG rule set. So how many people are familiar with the CCG and sort of how they basically work?
What is CCG?
Collectible card game.
Thank you.
So basically, every time you play a card, it affects the rules in some way. It may affect the rules of other cards. It may affect the rules of what it can do. And so this is an incredibly deep game. I have probably spent 25 hours playing this game since I started. I'm about halfway through the campaign mode for story cards, and I've played every single AI opponent I came across, and I'm just starting to scrape up real players because there is a multiplayer mode as well of people who want to play with me. I think it's a very fascinating game. Okay, so back to the game. You guys remember the game, right? So the embedded games are clearly transformational. I don't think there's really any question about that, right? Except Story Cards is also clearly AAA. It rivals many of the CCGs that people are sending out there with no transformational intent whatsoever. I do not see myself, the only reason I think I might quit playing anytime soon is that I can't find other people to play with. And the only reason that might happen is that because this product is meant for schools, security and communications are very well protected, and because you want kids only really interacting with the kids in their school for obvious reasons. And so I'm in a very small school of the people who have developed the game. And at some point, because they're all game makers, they may move on. Okay, so this is just the menu for the embedded games. There's plenty of other menus. And I wanted to show you this because I wanted to show you how much I haven't shown you. So these are the games I showed you. And these are the games that I've played that I haven't showed you. And one of the reasons I haven't showed you them is, well, one of them I forgot to capture. But two of them are so long that I couldn't speed them up fast enough and have them still make any sense to you. There's so much gameplay time in there. They're engaging as a single player, but there wouldn't be at all interesting for you guys to watch really at 8 times speed or 14 times speed. These are the games I haven't yet unlocked. I don't actually know what is in these games. These games, I assume, will unlock as I finish my completionist playthrough. So there's one last, actually I want to go back and show you. There's a few other things going on here. There's the e-reader. So that's got about 400 embedded books. Most of those are in the public domain, but very, very, very quickly we're moving into a space where we're getting more modern books. Those are coming in very, very fast. I think we just got approved to include Narnia as an example, the Narnia series. And then let's look at Scriptus. So one of the things that I think is part of the measure of a lot of good AAA games is user-created content. And I'm going to show you a little bit of Scriptus. Now this is a Scriptus that I put together, and it took me 5 minutes, okay? And it's a micro story. I wanted it to come in a flash. So you come up to a pot of stew, the stew smells delicious, you choose the mushroom example, and you die. Okay, great. I didn't really, I had this kind of woods thing. I didn't really like the woods thing. I thought actually that, well, I thought of a good title, which is The Flat Red Sand. And so then I thought maybe I need to change this into a beach theme. And so I just came in and I'm just going to change this. So I came upon a shack on the beach. And okay, that's great. But I also need to make it look less like a forest, right? So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to fix that so it's sandy. And I'm going to change the wood stuff so it looks like that kind of, weathered, kind of light-colored, beachy wood that you find. And, okay, so this is a super simple example, right? It took me 5 minutes, but there are very, very deep, complex ones. And then this is what it's like to actually play it once we've got the beach going on. Look at the pot. Ooh, I like pork falling from the bone. All right, so I have a little cannibal thing going on because, whatever, you gotta tell the, not the important stories, but yeah, if you're going to tell a story in 80 characters or less, I guess. So, Scriptus is definitely transformational, but I think it has a special place here because I think that all user-created content engines in all games, whether or not they are AAA, are transformational. At the very least, they are trying to transform the player to be a loyal user of that game. But a lot of times, they are really trying to teach something. It is through user-created content that I became a game maker. And so it definitely was transformational for me in terms of taking me from who knows what future to a future where I was able to engage in things that I found very, very important. So earlier I asked, why is it both? And I think this is a really important question because there are people in this room who have made really important, engaging, interesting transformational games that were not AAA. And those games have a place, and that place needs to be recognized. But why is this one AAA? What is this trying to do by being AAA? Well, you kind of gotta ask the players, right? And so I have brought a couple of quotes from kids who have actually been playing Lexica that I want to show you. There's this one from a girl, a 6th grade girl. Lexica is my favorite game of all time. When I see the boys in my class playing their action games, I'm like, how do you guys do that? But when I started playing Lexica, I was like, I could get used to this. I could play this every day. So that's pretty good, right? There's a whole lot going on there in terms of her engagement with the game, her feeling like she can get through stuff that she's been omitted from. There's another kid, I don't know if this kid's in the same class. He had something else to say. I'm a gamer, I play Call of Duty every day. When I first heard about Lexica, I was like, they're all like, it's about learning, so I'm not gonna like it that much. Out of 10, I might like it a 4. 10 out of 10. I never knew there could be a game that's fun for learning. Who would have thought that's possible? Well, the people who thought this is possible are the people at Amplify Learning and the people at Schell Games who realized that what some of these kids need in order to engage in a learning game is to feel like their tastes and their values in media have been respected enough that somebody is willing to take the risk to make a AAA game for the stuff that they actually need to learn, right? And for some of those kids, that really is a transformational moment. Oh, it's not just some little web game. I have taught myself that those aren't valuable. Somebody thought that it was important enough to help me learn to love reading that they made this enormous effort. And that is a moment when those two really different worlds, AAA and Transformational, have come together to create something that is very new and that I think will make a really big difference in some kids' lives. I don't know if we have any time for questions.
We've got about 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, I was in late. What does the AAA stand for?
AAA is a self-congratulatory term that big budget console games mostly, and some PC is coming back, use to describe their very big budgets and very big teams and very big marketing pushes.
Do you have any download numbers of how many people have downloaded the app?
I do not. The game is currently being marketed through school districts and sold through school districts, and I believe it's still in pilot. That's a new word for me. We never did pilots before. So.
Question. Do teachers get any say in what the student actually learns? Or does a report go to a teacher?
Sure, that's a really good question. I don't actually know what data the teacher sees for this game. One of the interesting things that I probably should have told you guys before is that this game comes with the curriculum that Amplify has, the digital curriculum that Amplify has made. And it's intended to just be there, right? The intent is you just find this on your tablet and you don't know why it's there and nobody really talks about it and it's not assigned as homework. It's the thing which is the alternative to the digital curriculum which feels maybe a little bit like school. And so that is kind of an important point to what you're saying. Now there is some data gathered, but the kinds and amount of data that you can gather on students in school is very limited, and so I'm not exactly sure what conclusions you could draw from that.
Can the students play the game without reading any of the books?
They can. I don't know how many actually would. Initially, your on-ramping into books is so incredibly rewarding that even if all you want to do is scan and look for the quizzes, That's something that you really kind of want to do. In fact, one of the things I'm doing now is I'm going through the entire library and I'm scanning for every book that I've already read to just try to get all the quizzes. And that, scanning is a part of reading, and it's a practice of reading that can be helpful. Also, books are surfaced. You can't go 5 minutes without a book being surfaced, and it's all different kinds of books. And really what we're trying to do is show kids gateway books that they haven't seen before, that maybe you're not a reader because you haven't seen that there are awesome vampire books and awesome books about being a pioneer and all of this great stuff that you may not have seen before.
Last question.
Last question. You had your hand up first. I'm sorry.
So, could you talk a little bit about one of the criticisms I heard about kids not reading enough is that long form reading in general requiring the focus and
Sure.
maintaining focus on that.
Sure.
How does that work in a game that is still inherently more active
Sure.
feedback?
Sure.
How does that play out?
There's one specific part of the theory that there's lots of theoretical underpinnings behind this game, which I'm not super qualified to talk about, but I will talk about them anyway because I've watched the talks. So one of those is that one of the reasons that kids don't do a lot of long-form reading is they don't have time. And one of the reasons they don't have time is because there's so much media competing for their attention. Lexica is on your tablet without being advertised as an educational or transformational experience exactly so that it can grab some of that media time back. So there's plenty of long-form reading available in the game, and you're right, there is some action, but all of the dialogue, and you have to actually read the dialogue and understand it in order to progress through the game. There's a great deal of dialogue. I think there was a team of, I don't think I'm exaggerating, 12 writers for 2 years writing the dialogue for this game. It's huge. So just playing through this game is in and of itself a form of long-form reading. And there is a point, I think, at which we kind of have to look at any practice as good practice, right? For kids who are struggling to read for a variety of reasons, any time that you're going to either skim or deeply read or examine a sentence, that is going to move you forward just a little bit.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.